our egos convince us that if we hold tight enough, if we try hard enough, if we keep pushing and pushing and pushing, if we're just perfect enough, if we show up just the right way, that we can control timing. That is not true, my dears. That is part of why you're suffering. There is a whole alchemical process of these three things happening behind the scenes in your system, preparing you, bringing the right opportunity forward, and wanting you to be in line with your purpose. And when you can trust that system, that alchemy, you can let go. Have you ever just thought to yourself, I thought I'd be there by now, with like total exacerbation? I relate. And today's video is for you if you relate. All right, let's talk about self-trust and timing. This is the place where I often find myself and my clients get lost on their self-trust journey. We can believe that it's good to believe in ourselves. I can convince you of that for sure. Hopefully I have if you've watched my other videos. But it's really hard to stay in that belief when you don't start seeing the evidence piling up that trusting in yourself is leading to your dreams or getting you what you want. And this is where timing becomes an issue. So today, I want to give you the roadmap so that you're not lost or afraid or confused enough to lose trust in yourself when the road gets windy and the timing is not what you thought. Look, if you've watched my other videos, you know that I say that evidence is so important for us human beings and our brains to believe that something is real. So when we begin to trust in ourselves and trust in our intuition and believe that the path that we desire is the one that we should stick to and that we have what it takes to get there, we also are going to want evidence that that path is indeed correct, that trusting in ourselves is the right thing to do. We're going to look for the outcomes. We're going to look for where do the opportunities come from once we start to believe in ourselves and trust our inner knowing. And sometimes it doesn't shape up the way that we thought in the timing that we expected. And this can be so devastating, especially if you are new to the concept of really trusting your own inner wisdom. It can feel like a shot across the bow because the part of you that wants to protect you is going to use that delayed timing to say, see, you don't have what it takes and you don't know the right answers. That part, remember, isn't trying to hurt you. It's a protection mechanism that creates beliefs that cause you to suffer because it wants you to ultimately be safe. And when you are disappointed, when you're devastated because things haven't worked out in the timing you expected, that part believes that you're unsafe all of a sudden. It goes into fight or flight and it becomes really challenging. It can become mean and cynical and critical and convince you that believing in your own path and your own inner wisdom is not actually the right way to go because look, you're suffering. But here's the deal. You don't have to believe the thought. What we need to do is remove the suffering. And that's what I'm hoping this video allows you to walk away from today. So let's talk about what happens when the evidence doesn't show up. Let's talk about what we do versus what we should do. What we do when we have been working towards something and have decided to trust in self and follow our inner knowing, and the thing doesn't work out in the timing we expected, the first thing we do is we doubt self. So what's the opposite of self-trust? Self-doubt. All of that training that we've had up until this moment that tells us you're not good enough, you don't have what it takes, other people are better than you or have more luck than you have, whatever story we have about our own not enoughness becomes really loud. And that self-doubt, like I just said, is trying to protect us. And we go towards that self-doubt almost like a cozy blanket because it does feel like protection. Now, We're going to talk about why we choose this thought that causes us to suffer more in a second. I just want to get through the other two things we do when it doesn't work out in the timing we thought. So the first is self-doubt. The second is blame. We look around the world and we want to blame other people. This person didn't give me the promotion. They don't see me the way that I should be seen. The world isn't ready for my message. We feel like people are out to get us sometimes. Sometimes we can get into this victim mode that says other people are causing me to not have what I want. Now, just a note on this. I am not saying that systematic oppression does not exist, because I have seen it in my own life. It is very real, depending on your identity, the color of your skin, your sexual orientation, your gender. We do live in a world that has created systems that make it harder for some of us to succeed and easier for others. Privilege is real. So please don't take anything I'm saying as any indication that those things aren't true. They are real, and we also have a role in the way we take things in and what we believe about ourselves. So when we are in blame mode and we're looking at the world, I am not saying that some of the things we see aren't actually happening. They are, and we can believe that we are powerless to those things. So understand that while they are still happening, the story we tell ourselves is what causes us maybe to shrink, maybe to try a little less hard, because we believe that the odds are stacked against us. But in other instances, we can blame others who don't even deserve the blame. We can take people who have nothing to do with what we didn't get yet and put the blame on them. A good example of this actually is envy. Now, I just want to say this about envy. Envy is a really enlightening tool. I know that when we feel envy for other people, we can often also feel shame, because it's shameful. It's one of the 7 deadly sins in Christianity, right? So we can feel like we're doing something terrible when we are jealous of someone else and what they have. But actually, if you can turn envy on its head and look at it, what it really is an indication of what you desire deep in your soul. So give yourself some grace if you ever feel envy for what someone else has received or has in their life. It's just that part of you that wants it. And maybe if you don't shame yourself, it won't go kicking and screaming so loud. But envy is another sort of parallel to blaming others. Looking at others and saying, they have it, I don't have it. The third thing we do is blame the universe. Why, oh, why have you forsaken me? Does that sound familiar? Whatever your concept of God is, the universe, God, Allah, Christ, Buddha, whoever that you believe is your highest source, we often can feel forsaken by. And that is a very normal reaction to not getting what we expected when we go forward in self-trust, because self-trust has a deeply spiritual element to it. It means that we are in trust and faith. That's where the word faith comes from that you hear religions use so often. And so when it doesn't work out, it's really easy to blame higher source. Now, all of these reactions to not getting what we want in the timing that we want, why do we do this? We do this because we need to understand why it's not happening. Otherwise, there's a void in our thinking. There's a void in our system. We can't compute. X plus Y needs to equal Z. And we need a reason why, even though we've believed in ourselves, even though we've been working so hard and we've been trying and it's still not working out, we need to put a reason to the madness. So I say that because I don't want any of you who identify with any of the 3 things I just mentioned, the self-doubt, the blame of others, the blame of the universe, to feel shame over it. This is part of our psyche. Our psyche is trying to work out why it's not working. And I hope that knowing that allows you to recognize when you're doing it and say, okay, I'm actually now going to choose what I should be doing instead, so that I can suffer less while I keep working towards this thing that I want and trust in my inner knowing. So what should we be doing? The biggest, most important thing that I can tell you about suffering less while you work towards what you want is trusting in divine timing. And listen, I'm going to make this as practical and non-woo as I can, because divine timing doesn't have to be, again, religious. It doesn't have to be about believing in the divine, even though I very much do, and there's evidence of it all the time in my life. Divine timing simply boils down to the right thing happening at the right time. Or think about it like this: when preparation meets opportunity meets purpose. When we are ready, when the opportunity arises, and when it aligns to the reason we're here, the impact we are meant to have on this world, that is divine timing. And think about how complex those three factors are. It's not linear, which means it doesn't always show up in the way we expected, in the time we expected, because maybe we are not prepared. Maybe the opportunity isn't the right opportunity to get us to where we want to go. Or maybe if we don't wait or we don't allow the right timing, we will do something that is off course from our purpose. And remember, your soul is here incarnated in this body with the natural skills you have and the desires that you have in your belly, in your gut for what you want. All of those things are intelligently designed in you because you have a very specific purpose. What you want and what you're naturally good at are the clues to your purpose. So know that if we are not seeing what we want to happen along our self-trust journey in the time we want, that maybe it's not the right opportunity, maybe we're not prepared enough, and maybe it isn't in line with our purpose. That is the way I want you to think about divine timing. Once you have really accepted that, there's a way that we can begin to let go and trust those three things. I trust in the opportunity, the purpose, and my own preparation to work together, this alchemy that they are working on behind the scenes that I can't see, which means I can let go a little bit. Our egos convince us that if we hold tight enough, if we try hard enough, if we keep pushing and pushing and pushing, if we're just perfect enough, if we show up just the right way, that we can control timing. That is not true, my dears. That is part of why you're suffering. There is a whole alchemical process of these three things happening behind the scenes in your system, preparing you, bringing the right opportunity forward, and wanting you to be in line with your purpose. And when you can trust that system, that alchemy, you can let go. You can just allow the river to flow and you flow with it, trusting that it's taking you towards your heart's greatest desire, trusting that that inner knowing is guiding you on when to swim and when to lay back. That is what it is to live in full trust and faith. But here's the hard part, and I want to just name this because we all are living this. We can have trust and faith and still feel disappointed that life doesn't look the way we wanted it to look right now. That's okay. Disappointment is not failure. I had a client say to me the other day, a very well-known performer who I'm sure a lot of you have seen. He said to me, it was such a freedom when you said to me, I'm allowed to be disappointed. When we don't give ourselves the freedom to feel any of our feelings, but especially disappointment, we can get really stuck because we're not looking at how we really feel. But when you can say to yourself, you know, I'm really disappointed that life doesn't look the way I expected it to right now, that feeling itself gets to also flow out of you and into that river. So it's okay to be disappointed. But now I'm going to say this to you. If you're feeling like life doesn't look the way you expected right now, I want to ask you something, and I want you to maybe pause the video, take a deep breath, and see what comes to you. Is that totally true? Is that true of every single aspect of your life? Does every part of your life not look the way you expected? Or is it just some parts? This is important because things are in process. And what I mean by that is there are certain aspects of your life that are very much in line with what you want, very much keeping you happy and fulfilled. And so it's so important to understand that those puzzle pieces, we want to keep them there. We want to have gratitude for them so that they can remain a strong foundation while we're working on these other pieces. Don't turn your back to the parts of your life that are working out the way you want. Sometimes we are very definitive with our statements. Life isn't looking the way we want. But what I'm asking for you to do is be a little bit more nuanced in the way you're looking at that. Is it true for all of your life? The second thing to think about is, whose dream are you currently living right now? I guarantee there is a younger self in there. There is a kid who dreamed this life that you're living. Do it right now. Think about your 10-year-old self. Close your eyes, deep breath. Bring your 10-year-old self to mind. How does this kid feel about the life you're living right now? Some part of what you're living was their dream. So the worst thing you can do to that little kid is diminish this dream. Have some reverence for what that kid manifested. When you do that, the unlock is here. If that kid manifested this, what are you in the process of manifesting in the future? When you can see this side of the spectrum, the past, you can see this side of the spectrum, the future. And that is the core of trusting oneself, giving credit to all aspects of ourselves, all versions of ourselves that have created this life. Before we end this video, I want to tell you a little bit about the evidence that I find when I look for evidence. I told you before that looking at your own life is really good evidence for how timing just works out exactly in the right moment. But I also am constantly looking for how this is true in other people's lives. And what I find every time I look is that there are iconic people in the world who we recognize who have had to learn this divine timing lesson and stick with trusting themselves while doing it. So I'm just going to share a few of them with you, and hopefully they inspire you too. Any fans of KFC out there? One thing that's always struck me as so surprising is that Colonel Sanders started KFC at the age of 65. He was a restaurant owner, and his restaurant failed, and he had this idea of fried chicken and how he wanted to franchise it. He pitched this idea to hundreds and hundreds of partners and got so many no's along the way until finally one day he got a yes, and it turned into one Kentucky Fried Chicken location, and look at what it is today. So I always use that piece of evidence for the part of me that thinks, wow, you're in your 40s and you still haven't accomplished X, Y, or Z. I love these stories of it's never too late. I love to understand that other people have come into this knowing about divine timing, even in their 60s. Vera Wang is another amazing example of this. The wedding dress designer that you see, if you're familiar with everywhere, she wanted to be an Olympic figure skater. And when that didn't work out, she went to Vogue and decided that she was going to devote her career to Vogue and wanted to be an editor. And she didn't get the job she wanted at Vogue, and her wedding was coming up, and she designed her own wedding dress. And in the doing of that, learned so much about that craft and how it made her feel. And obviously she did a beautiful job, and word of mouth spread. And she's become one of the most iconic wedding dress designers in the world. So think about where along that story, whether it was in wanting to be a figure skater or wanting to be an editor at Vogue, she could have told herself, see, you don't have what it takes. There's something wrong with you. The timing isn't there. The universe isn't on your side, when actually that purpose part so badly wanted to be expressed that she needed to go through what she did to learn what she learned, preparation, so that the opportunity could arise so that she could live her purpose. Anyway, go Google it. You'll find stories everywhere of people who have had to allow the divine timing of opportunity, preparation, and purpose to come together so that you can see that if it can happen for them, it can happen for you. One of the things that I love, that I think about a lot, is that there was a time in my life where things felt like they were really falling apart. I was getting divorced with 2 really little kids. I was really unhappy in my career. I knew that I wanted to do more. And I felt really desolate. I felt like, you know what, there's nothing else left to hope for. And I remember being in Disney World with my really little kids, standing in line for the Finding Nemo ride. And when you're standing in line, they're playing all the music from Finding Nemo. And I remember being sort of just out of it and hearing on repeat over and over again the song they were playing in line, which is when Dory is singing, "Just keep swimming, swimming, swimming." And that became my life raft. So I want you to know this. I just kept swimming. And when you trust the flow of that river that you're swimming in, when you trust that everything is flowing towards your greatest desires and that you have to keep listening in and trusting your inner knowing, I promise you, it works out greater than your greatest expectations. So have some trust and faith. That was one of my favorite topics. I hope that you feel inspired to let go a little and trust the timing as you're working on trusting yourself. If you like this video, please share it with others, but also subscribe to get more videos from me, and I'll be back next week with another video about how to trust yourself.